You're on.
Oh, you're on. You're on. Right. Well, since we already had our talk with our Elohim, we're going to continue on our genealogy. The genealogy of Shem, and we're getting closer to Abram. But we come to Eber now. And again, we miss so much in the genealogies because we don't bother to pay any attention to anything. But like we said, that in Torah, time is helical, and that it constantly overlaps. And when we read something that might be insignificant, it might hold a great deal of significance for something that's coming, or that something that's been established to prepare for our transgression. There's a whole lot of safety nets within and throughout Torah to protect us, basically, from ourselves. The whole purpose for Torah is to reunite humankind, Adam, to Elohim, to basically to restore the covenant that Adam had with Elohim in the beginning. So we're going to take a look at some very interesting comparisons. I think they're very interesting comparisons. That's up to y'all to decide whether they're interesting comparisons. But we'll start at verse 16 in Bereshit 11. And this is Bereshit 11, 16 through 18. Sometimes I jump ahead and I'll list a whole bunch of other verses thinking I'm going to go ahead and do all these, and I don't go back and correct it. So I corrected it at the top there. So, but it's Bereshit 11, 16 through 18. And we start, and it says, "And Eber lived 34 years and begot Peleg." And it's just a verse that we just breeze through it trying to get through the generations of Shem, but what is it telling us? So we've learned that the name Eber comes from a root that means to cross over, and that Eber was the source of the Hebrew people. We call the Hebrew people Ivrit, and the root of Ivrit is Eber. So we can in a sense say that we are Hebrews if we have crossed over from one life into another. You know, say we were living in darkness at once upon a time, and we've now crossed over and we're living in the light. That's one philosophical way of putting it. Crossed over, then we can say that we're Hebrews. The word Vayehi, and we see Vayehi in the Hebrew of the verse. It's the first Hebrew letter, or the first Hebrew word. Remember, we read it right to left. Vayehi means to live, but it comes from a root, chaya, that means to exist. And it's from this that we have to understand that our life and our existence is dependent on our being able to cross over. You know, we remain in darkness where we can't ever be in the presence of the light. So how do we cross over? If we say that it was Joshua that led the Hebrews as they crossed over the river Jordan, then we can say that it is Yahshua that leads us when we cross over those things that will drag us down. Jordan means to pull or to drag down. Now, what does this have to do with our verse? Consider the number 4. It's represented by the letter Dalet. And Dalet means door, but it also means a state of spiritual poverty. It's the root of the word Dalut, which means poverty. Specifically, it's a spiritual type of poverty. Considering this, we'll take a look at John 10:9. Yeshua says, "I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be delivered and will come in and go out and find pasture." Yeshua is the door, and his name means restoration, redemption, and deliverance of Yahweh. He is the way that we cross over from the spiritual poverty, or anytime we come into a state of spiritual poverty, and we come into spiritual poverty quite a few times throughout our lifetime. And sometimes we come into a state of spiritual poverty several times a day without realizing it. And an example of this is, that's not going to work. I can't get anything right. I'm sick. You look sick. We speak curses on ourselves. We speak curses on others. And this is a state of spiritual poverty. We have to make teshuvah to get this, because what we bind on earth is bound in the realm of Elohim. We say something negative. I'm sick, or you look sick. Elohim says, okay, if that's the way you want it. He has to respect what we say. So we have to break that curse in the name of Yahshua. We break it in the name of the restoration and the deliverance from whatever it is that we've spoken into existence that comes from Yahweh, who is Yahshua. We say, in the name of Yahshua, I break this curse. And then what we loose on earth is also loosed in the realm of Elohim. But he says he is the way that we cross over from spiritual poverty, that can lead us down or into the green pastures and the still waters that bring us life. So we read Psalm 23, verses 1 through 4, that kind of take us into the letter 30, or the number 30. And it says, a psalm of David. Yahweh is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the straight paths for his name's sake. Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And the Aramaic kind of tells us something slightly different. Though I might walk through the darkest valleys. So it's not necessarily, we don't have to be on the precipice of death, but when we're walking through dark times in our lives, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And in this we ask, what did Yahshua tell us? I'm with you always. The word is always with us. We always have a means to find rest. We always have a means to find restoration if we believe and receive. And we can back that up by this next phrase, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. We find in this verse, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And in this we find the number 30, which is the numerical value of the letter Lamed. The Proto-Hebrew pictograph of the Lamed is a shepherd's staff, the shepherd goat. Okay? Lamed means instruction. And we find the instruction of Yahweh in his Torah, and it is here that we find our comfort. If we consider again that Yeshua said, come to me, all of you who are freaked out, wigged out, stressed out, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, because I am humble and meek. And then he says, you will find rest in my heart. We find this in the Aramaic. You will find rest within my heart. Well, we say that the last letter of Torah is the Lamed, the first letter is the Beit. You put them together, it spells Lev, which is heart. And at the very center of Torah, the very middle letter of Torah is found in Vayikra 11:42, and the word for belly, Gahon, which is the enlarged Vav, which represents humankind, that we are always at the center of the heart of Elohim. We are always at the center of his heart. And our best interest is the only thing that our Elohim cares about. So, that in the Torah we find our comfort. We must, however, keep in mind that 4, or Dalet, does have a dark side, and that it does represent spiritual poverty, and that if we stray from the word of Yahweh Elohim and begin to lean on our own understanding, it will bring a separation from his presence. in this we consider, and begot Peleg. Vayoled et Peleg is what we read in that phrase. The root of Vayoled is Yalad, that means to be brought forth or to come forth. The Aleph and the Tav in the Et represents the word of Yahweh. Whenever we see the Aleph and the Tav, and we see the Aleph and the Tav over 600 times in Torah, we call it a subject pointer. It's a grammatical tool in the Hebrew language, but sometimes it's used in really odd ways. Sometimes it's not found there where it should be there. So it's telling us something within the verse, but the Aleph and the Tav represents the word of Yahweh Elohim. He said, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last. And then the name Peleg means to divide. So we see this, that what can come forth, if we allow it, is a separation from Yahweh, if we start to stray from our Elohim. Now, Yahshua said that the Father seeks those who worship in spirit and in truth, and this is at John 4:23 and 24. And in this we must understand that it is our responsibility to seek Elohim to live. It's our responsibility to seek the truth in the Word in order to build a relationship with Him based on truth. And again, no teacher, no rabbi, no pastor, no televangelist, no best-selling novel can replace your own delving into the scriptures, because I could be wrong. I have been wrong. In fact, when we first started, I made an error, and I came to the congregation. I said, "Hey, I made a mistake. This is what it actually is." You find teachers that will admit when they're wrong. You know, you got something going on. But I've also heard pastors make comments that, for instance, that Passover and Sukkot occurred during the same month, which is, if you don't understand the civil calendar and the sacred calendar, sure, you could make that mistake. And then when you approach them and say, they don't occur in the same month, instead of saying, oh, well, I need to go let them know what I got from this particular person was, well, they don't need to know. Mm-hmm. So whose responsibility ultimately is it to make sure that what you're getting is right? And this is why Paul tells Timothy, and it's supposed to be 2:15, not 2:16. 2 Timothy 2:15. It says, be diligent. The Aramaic says, study, to present yourself approved to Elohim as a workman who does not need to be ashamed, accurately handling the word of truth. We will be held accountable for this. So we ask, have we handled the word of truth correctly? We look at Devarim 13:1, and it's Devarim 13:1 in Torah. If you have King Jimmy or any other English-based Bibles, it's going to be Deuteronomy 12:32. For some reason, it's different. 12:32 of Deuteronomy doesn't exist in Torah. But this is a very important verse, and it says, all this word which I command you that you shall observe to do, you shall not add to it nor diminish from it. Don't add to it, don't take away from it. Why did the rabbis think it important to number this 13:1? 13 is the gematria of the word echad. We say, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Elokeinu, Yahweh Echad. We're saying, this is my oath. But 13 is the ordinal value. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13 is the ordinal value of the letter Mem, which represents the word, which tells us the word is Echad. There is one word. And then we have, of course, one that tells us So it's very important that we understand that in our oath, in the Shema, that we have the responsibility of perceiving, discerning, and understanding what the word of Elohim tells us. And those are three definitions of the word Shema. So we've considered the helical nature of time within Torah, and we said that it does this as opposed to starting, going, stopping, changing, starting, stopping, changing to something else. It does this, in which positive overlaps negative. Positive overlaps negative. There is a curse and a blessing at the same time. There is, let's say, transgression and a means to make teshuvah, all at the same time. So, helical. When we say that, we're going to see in the next verse that although division will come, there will always be a means of restoring one to the right path. And we read in verse 17, "And Eber lived after he begot Peleg 430 years, and begot sons and daughters." We say, okay, well, we keep going with the genealogy, take another Red Bull, a couple more no-dos, and we'll finish the genealogy. But what does it mean simply beyond a genealogy? Even if division arises and we find ourselves separated from Yahweh Elohim, okay? And Eber lived after he begot Peleg. That even if division arises and we find ourselves separated from Yahweh Elohim, there is always a means for teshuvah and hence restoration. Okay? Eber lived. The means for crossing over exists even though this period of separation comes forward. If we compare 430 years to the next several verses, we kind of get an idea of how this is to be done. And we began our comparison with John 1:1 that says, "In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with Elohim. The Word was Elohim." Now we add to that John 1:14 that says, "And the Word became human and made his tabernacle among us, and we saw his glory. Glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." And we talked about this, I think, last week sometime. And then in this we consider that the word and the authority of Yahweh Elohim, his Torah, became human, and he was full of grace and truth, that he was the only perfect human to have ever existed. Now, keeping that in mind, we add in John 1:4 that says, "In him was life, and the life was the light of men." Okay, not just men, but humankind as a whole. Then we consider, on top of that, John 1:12 through 13 that says, "But as many as received him, to them he gave the right, the authority, to become the children of Elohim, even to those who believe in his name." Now this next phrase, or this next verse, is really something that we need to grab onto and understand. It says, "He gave the right to become children of Elohim, even to those who believe in his name." Okay? The right, the authority to become children of Elohim. But now, "who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Elohim." Okay? If we believe and receive, then we too are born of the Spirit. We go back to the beginning. What did Yahshua tell Nicodemus? He said you have to be born again. Literally in the Aramaic, you have to go back to the beginning. And we are like Adam, that we are born of the Ruach of Elohim. How did Adam come into being? He was formed, but then Yeah,